Kunj Bihari Radha. Bolo. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Vanantari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Gaura Premanande, Jayam Sukhaga Paramahamsa, Pri Vrajagachajasto, Tarasatya, Sri Simadhi, Divine Grace, Hirabai Charanarvind, Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, ISKCON BBT, Founder Acharyas, Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Salvata Bhakti Vrinda ki, Transcendental Distribution ki, Jayanitai Gaur Premanande, all bloodies to be assembled devotees, all bloodies to be assembled devotees, all bloodies to be assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurandilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutare Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Syam Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaga Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Taptakansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasaya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Granthara, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bhagavatam class. Continuing to read from chapter 3 of the first canto, chapter entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And yesterday we read that. So today we are reading 41. So text 41. Tad idam grayamam grahayam asa sutam atmavatam Varam Sarva Vedetihasanam Saram Saram Samudritam Tam idam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam varam Sarva vede tihasanam Saram saram samudritam Tad idam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam varam Sarva vedeti hasanam Saram saram samudritam Tadidam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam varam Sarva vedeti hasanam Saram saram samudritam Taridam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam Sarva vedeti hasanam Saram saram samudritam Tadidam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam Sarva vedehita sanam Saram saram samudritam Tadidam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam varam Sarva vedeti hasanam Saram saram samudritam Tadidam grahayam asa Sutam atmavatam saram Sarva vedeti hasanam Saram saram samudritam Tat that idam this grahayam grahayam asa made to accept Sutam unto his son Atmavatam of the self-realized Varam most respectful Sarva all Veda Vedic literatures books of knowledge Itihasanam of all the histories Saram cream Saram cream Samudritam taken out. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. Kindly repeat after me. Sri Vyasadeva delivered it to his son, who is the most respected among the self-realized, after extracting the cream of all Vedic literatures and histories of the universe. Purport. Men with a poor fund of knowledge only accept the history of the world from the time of Buddha, or since 600 BC. And prior to this period, all histories mentioned in the scriptures are calculated by them to be only imaginary stories. That is not a fact. All the stories mentioned in the Puranas and Mahahistories, not only of this planet, but also of millions of other planets within the universe. Sometimes the history of planets beyond this world appears to such men to be unbelievable. But they do not know that different planets are not equal in all respects, and that therefore some of the historical facts derived from other planets do not correspond with the experience of this planet. Considering the different situation of different planets, and also time and circumstances, there is nothing wonderful in the stories of the Puranas, nor are they imaginary. We should always remember the maxim that one man's food is another man's poison. We should not therefore reject the stories and histories of the Puranas as imaginary. The great rishis like Vyasa had no business putting some imaginary stories in their literatures. Very important point being explained here. One time Srila Prabhupada was having a discussion with a very scholarly person in India on the Bhagavad Gita. And they were discussing the statement that Krishna makes to Arjuna, that I have what I will be speaking to you today, this knowledge that I am revealing to you. This is a very ancient knowledge that I have previously spoken to Vivasvan, sun god. And of course we know that Arjuna himself was puzzled about this. How is it we are the same age, you know? Vivasvan is so much senior how is it? That was Arjuna's question. So, of course, Krishna explained also. By his response, we can understand Krishna's transcendental nature, transcendental position. So the person to whom Srila Prabhupada was speaking, he asked Prabhupada, "You really believe this? You believe that?" And Prabhupada replied, "Yes, of course." Sri Bhagavan Uvasya, no. That means that that person could not accept or understand that Krishna is God. Anyone who is, well, not anyone who is God, but the God by, by definition means he can do anything. God by definition means that he's eternal, and therefore his nature is fully and completely transcendental, not at all like us. Yeah. So, so this is a very important point that they are so unique, and so Vedic literatures are actual books of knowledge, and therefore that's why a few years ago I think one of the chief ministers, I forget which state here in India, was had declared that we should introduce the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in the school and colleges, regardless of what religion one is following, because it's not a book of religion, it's a book of knowledge. So knowledge is for everybody. Knowledge is not only for Hindus or Christians or whatever. So this is a very important point to understand, that these Vedic literatures are eternal books of knowledge that provide us knowledge or information, not only of this planet, but of other planets. Not only of this universe, but of other universes, isn't it? Yeah. When we read, for example, the creation of the world, then we come to know that there are, you know, unlimited, innumerable universes that are coming out of the body of? No, the universes don't come out of the body of Krishna. They come out of the body of Mahavishnu. Yeah. Of course, Mahavishnu comes out of, is an expansion or incarnation of Lord Krishna. Everything originates ultimately, but there is that system, that arrangement, that Mahavishnu is the expansion of the second Sankarshan, yeah, the whole explanation of how from that original Godhead, so many other gods or Purushas, incarnations appear. This is the chapter we are studying. So that is why in the Puranas and even in the Mahabharata, which is giving us knowledge and information quite recent actually. I mean, if we look in the context of yugas, when we know that a yuga is, how long is one yuga? Depends on the yuga, right? Our yuga, which is the smallest yuga, is how many years? 432,000 years. And the four yugas altogether are over 2 million years. So 5,000 years is when the Mahabharata war took place, and there are fantastic descriptions, isn't it? How they were shooting arrows imbued by mantra, imbued by a very powerful energy that would make the arrow do unimaginable things, isn't it? Like out of arrows would come out hundreds, if not thousands of arrows, or would come fire, etc., like that. So these are sciences that in Kali Yuga, of course, are lost, but that existed before. So when we understand, when we accept the definition that God exists to begin with, and that God, by definition, can do anything because He's omnipotent. He has all types of potencies, and also the the situation or the atmosphere in different places, different planets. Even on our planet, it's like if you go in the Himalaya mountains, then the situation is very different than here. If one goes in the ocean, one can see things that he cannot perceive in other places. And so many different animals or aquatics, they have abilities that we don't have as human beings. So we cannot judge everything simply based on what we know or what we can do, isn't it? Prabhupada explains how by studying nature, by studying nature, we can come to know about different, the wonderful creation of the Lord. Just like, what is it? The hawk. What is the special feature of the hawk? What is a hawk? Huh? Not hawk. Hawk. H-A-W-K. Hawk. He flies very high, and not only does he fly very high, but it's like hawks are like descendants of Garuda. Who's Garuda? Krishna's airplane. Carrier. I say carrier. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So hawk, I mean, all the birds actually are connected with Garuda. So the specialty of the hawk is that he flies very high, but from that height, which is like hundreds of feet, I don't know, maybe I can't speculate, but it's extremely high. He has such perfect vision that he can see a rat running from that height. And as soon as he spots, when he gets hungry, then he swoops down and then he catches. Of course, there are big hawks that can also catch, like much bigger than a rat or even a rabbit. They'll catch what is it? Goats, or even bigger than goats. Yeah. So Prabhupada was explaining one time that there are birds See, people will say this is not true. Prabhupada explains there are birds that fly from one planet to another. And in between, as they fly, they lay eggs that hatch, I guess, and then they start to fly also. They probably only hatch when they have their wings, otherwise they just like fall into wherever. Just like the small bird, uh, when the mother bird lays her eggs, then maybe you've seen, she will come and feed the birds, the baby birds. And the small baby birds are just like waiting and waiting for the food to come. Then after some time, the mother bird will throw them out of the nest. I mean, she knows when to do that, when they're ready to fly. They've never practiced flying, right? Small birds in the nest, when they come out of the nest, because normally a nest is, of course, on a tree, on some height is there. So they have to, if they are, healthy birds, then by nature they will fly. We don't have experience of birds that go from one planet to another. Of course, scientists have studied birds that travel very long distance, actually every year. Now this is changing because we're polluting the sky in so many different ways. But every year, for example, in Canada, the geese, big bird, they would travel in hundreds together, and they have a special way of traveling. What is that special way of traveling? Huh? Madrid. Migrate. Migrate means to go from one place to another. Now the special way of traveling, like in a V form. The one that is, we don't have that experience because even when we go in an airplane, we're not like, in the front. That's why airplane is like pointed like this. So the geese or the ducks, they fly in a very scientific. The strongest, he's the one who's in the front, and he breaks like the air and makes it easier for the others in the back. And after some time, he gets tired, and then another one like that. So nature is actually Krishna's nature. Krishna's nature is wonderful, and beyond our understanding. That is Krishna's potency, and his potencies are beyond our imagination. So this point is being made here that all that is mentioned in the Vedic literatures, in different Puranas, where we hear all kinds of far out descriptions. People say they are mythology. They are made up stories, but they are not mythology. It's like we accept Krishna's lifting of Govardhan Hill. Somebody will say, this is some story, made up story. It is not made up story. Krishna creates this universe with its different laws. One of the laws is called the law of gravitation. The scientists, they have their own theory of what is gravitation. Gravitation, yeah. That means that if you're standing somewhere on a ladder, and if you accidentally make the wrong step thinking that your foot is going to touch something, by the law of gravitation, you'll fall. and break your leg. Yeah. But, or if you try to step out of the boat, if you're on the boat in the lake, what happens if you get out of the boat? You'll sink. You know, you're floating on the boat, but if you know swimming, you can swim for some time. If you're in the ocean, you can't swim for a long time. You know. So it is said that Lord Jesus, he walked on water. Did you ever walk on water? I don't think so. Yeah. So ordinary people cannot walk on water. But if one knows, if one has some particular knowledge of the law of gravity, then he can float, he can walk on water. Or what it is said that demigods, when they come, they don't walk on the land, they just, that was Yudhisthira Maharaj also. His chariot, when he pronounced that, made that statement about Ashwatthama is dead, touched the ground. Let's continue in the purport here a little bit. So, this is an important point. And what we just read, just to repeat the last sentence here, you know, they're so, the great Rishi like Vyasa had no business putting some imaginary stories in their literatures. Just think about this. You know, not only we have Vyasadeva, so many rishis, so many very learned personalities. We have a long list of acharyas, isn't it? And the unique feature or quality of an acharya, saintly person, is that he will be talking about, you know, most important subject matters of the soul, and he has no business wasting his time telling stories that are not true. Whatever he speaks is in connection with the absolute truth, and therefore such personality, they are the last ones who will want to cheat us, and they have no business also wasting time in such kind of activities. So just to continue here, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, historical facts selected from the histories of different planets have been depicted. Yeah, so we find many narrations and stories in the Bhagavatam, things that happen in other planets. It is therefore accepted by all the spiritual authorities of the as the Mahapurana. Okay, yeah. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not only Purana, it is Mahapurana, means great Purana, the greatest actually. The special significance of these histories, what is the special significance of all of these different stories we are reading in the Mahabharata or Srimad Bhagavatam, Ramayana, yeah, is that they are all connected with the activities of the Lord in a different time and atmosphere. Srila Shukadeva Goswami is the topmost personality of all the self-realized souls, and he accepted this as the subject of studies from his father, Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva is the great authority, and the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam being so important, he delivered the message first to his great son, Srila Shukadeva Goswami. It is compared to the cream of the milk. Vedic literature is like the milk ocean of knowledge. cream or butter is the most palatable essence of milk. And so also is Srimad Bhagavatam, for it contains all palatable. Why both boards are going out? At the same time. For it contains all palatable, instructive, and authentic versions of different activities of the Lord and His devotees. There is no gain, however, in accepting the message of Bhagavatam from the unbelievers, atheists, and professional reciters who make a trade of Bhagavatam for the layman. It was delivered to Srila Shukadeva Goswami, and he had nothing to do with the Bhagavat business. Prabhupada is using the expression Bhagavat business because some people, unfortunately, make a business of the Bhagavatam, make a business by reciting the Bhagavatam. He did not have to maintain family expenses by such trade. Srimad Bhagavatam should therefore be received from the representative of Shukadeva, who must be in the renounced order of life without family encumbrance. Then someone will say, well, we have many grihasthas who speak on the Bhagavatam. What about our devotees who speak on that Bhagavatam? What to answer? Because Prabhupada is telling here, Bhagavatam has to be delivered by those in the renounced order of life without family encumbrance. So grihasthas are disqualified from giving class. Is it? Yes. That further adds to the controversy. But Shukadeva Goswami was not grihastha. Because actually one may be, well, we know from Bhagavatam that there are two types of householders. There is one type of grihastha, and there are two types of householders. We may say also that there are two types of grihasthas, but actually if we properly understand what is grihastha, there's only one grihastha. It's just like sometimes people that will say he's a good Brahmana. The Brahmana, he's automatically good. Isn't it? Yeah. So there is in the Shastra, Bhagavatam, our acharyas explain about grihastha and grihamedi. Yeah. So Bhagavatam should not be spoken by grihamedis. That's the message being given here. Grihamedi are those who are attached to family life, who are motivated in different ways. Whereas actual grihastha, Prabhupada explained, because grihastha is ashram. Ashram means one is focused on spiritual activities, especially, devotional service. And in our sampradaya, in our Vaishnava sampradaya, A grihastha especially means brahmachari grihastha. What is a brahmachari grihastha? What is a brahmachari? You're a brahmachari. So, who are you? What is a brahmachari? One who's not doesn't marry. Brahmachari. Yes. And what is a brahmachari grihastha? Those who do not beget child after marriage. No. I mean, people get married to beget children. One can have children and still be a brahmachari grihastha. How is that possible? Yes, Brahma, just I'll tell you a short story. True story. Many years ago, yeah, in the early days, the temple in Bhubaneswar, we have a very nice temple now in Bhubaneswar, Orissa, isn't it? But in the early days, there was no temple. Just like now in Juhu, we have a very nice temple. But when we got the land, there was only coconut trees, basically. So the very first building in Bhubaneswar, where we had the land, was a small hut, too small, like kutir. And Srila Prabhupada had requested one of his disciples to whom he gave sannyas, His Holiness Gaur Govinda Maharaj, because he was from Orissa. He requested him to do two things. One is to translate all of his books in Odia language, and the other one is to start a center and preach in Orissa, in Bhubaneswar. So Gaur Govinda Maharaj, before he joined ISKCON, was previously a householder. So in those very early days, he was practically alone preaching, but Srila Prabhupada had arranged that one devotee by the name of Bhagavat, very appropriate to the verse or the theme this morning. One devotee by the name of Bhagavat was assigned to actually assist. He was a Westerner, to assist Gaur Govinda Maharaj. So he spent quite a long time with him. And of course, years later, after Gaur Govinda Maharaj left actually the planet, years later, at different times he would, recall his staying with Maharaj and different things that Maharaj told him. So one of the interesting things that he told Bhagavat Prabhu at the time, now he's sannyasi, he said, when I was a householder, he was a teacher, actually, English teacher. So he said that I had 7 children. Yeah, I was a householder. Householder, you have children. Then he told to Bhagavat Prabhu, and I had sex life 7 times. That's called a brahmachari grihastha. Yeah. Grihastha Brahmachari means that one is a householder, but he has been trained and he understands the sex life is for begetting children, uh, for begetting children. That was the standard and the norm previously. Not everyone followed it. And nowadays, nobody's following it, practically. But it's like the reverse. But that means that such type of grihastha, this is the real meaning of grihastha, who is, both him and his wife are fixed on the primary goal of life, which is to become self-realized. And therefore, one who has such a mentality understands that actually to advance in spiritual life, to become self-realized, then I must minimize my activities of sense gratification, and therefore, or minimize my different needs, let's say bodily needs. So it means that actually such individuals are in the renounced order of life. Although they may not have a danda, they may not have saffron cloth. So it's not it is not something external. It is a question of transcendental realization. We'll just finish the purport, just short section left here. So Srimad Bhagavatam should therefore be received from the representative of Shukadeva, who must be in a renounced order of life without family encumbrance, even though he may be a householder. Milk is undoubtedly very good and nourishing, but when it is touched by the mouth of a snake, it is no longer nourishing. Rather, it becomes a source of death. Similarly, those who are not strictly in the Vaishnava discipline should not make a business of this Bhagavatam and become a cause of spiritual death for so many hearers. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that the purpose of all the Vedas is to know Him, Lord Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is Lord Krishna Himself in the form of recorded knowledge. Therefore, it is the cream of all the Vedas, and it contains all historical facts of all times in relation with Sri Krishna. It is factually the essence of all histories. So again, the special and unique feature of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and why we as Vaishnavas, why we in our Vaishnav tradition, Vaishnav Sampradaya, gave so much importance to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Any quick question or comment? Vaishnava and Brahmana. A Vaishnava is automatically having the qualities of a Brahmana. A Vaishnava may not be initiated as a Brahmana, but he has the qualities of a Brahmana. Whereas one may be a Brahmana, as a matter of fact, most Brahmanas do not know or do not accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Most Brahmanas in India, for example, and probably outside of India as well, they Brahmana, of course, is someone, can you straighten out that picture that you might have just, yeah, it's not straight. You're too close to the picture. So most Brahmanas are actually Mayavadis. They believe in God because astikyam, yeah, jnana, vijnana, knowledge, wisdom, and then believing in God is one of the 9 qualities of a Brahmana. So Brahmanas believe in God, but not everyone understands who is God, isn't it? So majority of people who are Brahmanas believe in God, but they don't know or don't understand or don't accept that Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So a Vaishnava automatically is a Brahmana in that he has the qualities of a Brahmana, although he may not technically be initiated as a Brahmana, isn't it? Whereas a Brahmana may be a Vaishnava or may not be a Vaishnava. A Brahmana is recognized as a Vaishnava Brahmana when he believes in Vishnu or Krishna, when he accepts Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, Vaishnava Brahmana, we should be hearing transcendental, many people who give Bhagavatam discourses, they may be Brahmana, but if they are not a Vaishnava Brahmana, we should not hear from them. So there are Vaishnava Brahmanas, Vaishnava Kshatriyas, Vaishnava Vaishyas, and Vaishnava Shudras.
Everywhere is there Vaishnava. Shudra, Vaishya.
Yes, yes. We generally do not classify Vaishnavas within these categories in the sense that we don't identify them simply on that material level of being Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra. But even amongst Vaishnavas, they can take up different activities that normally correspond to either Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, isn't it? So therefore, Srila Prabhupada speaks about, for example, that one of the objectives of the Krishna consciousness movement is to introduce the Brahmana culture, to re-establish Brahmana culture, and also to establish Kshatriya culture, and also to establish Vaishya culture, and also to establish Shudra culture. Shudras are actually very important. Shudras are actually, when we read the Bhagavatam, they are very elevated persons because they accept the Vedic culture and they engage in rendering service. Ultimately, everyone in the Vedic culture renders service because that is the essence and the basis and the focus. We render service ultimately to Krishna, but we generally render service through other persons. So that is the meaning of Daiva Varnasrama. Daiva Varnasrama means reintroducing Brahmana culture, Kshatriya culture, Vaishya culture, and Shudra culture. Shudra culture is that culture where one also develops, Prabhupada explains in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, one develops these 30 qualities. So an ideal Shudra is an ideal servant who is a Vaishnava and who also by whatever activity he takes up can become a self-realized person. Because by taking up Vaishnav culture, he as we mentioned a few minutes ago, develops these qualities of a Brahmana. Okay. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura